Hey there, I'm G, and welcome to the next level. I'm at Game On Expo 2025, and I have a special guest, a lovely, wonderful voice actress that not only does Sonic, but is also involved in many of the biggest franchises that you might have known. One Piece, Pokémon, and she is the one and only Blaze the cat. You know her, you love her. Everyone, Erica Schroeder. Erica,
hi guys.
Thank you so much for the interview.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate you. How's the convention been for you so far?
Amazing.
Yeah.
So many of my friends are here, so it's been really fun just catching up with everybody and meeting the fans. The fans are always awesome.
Always the fans. And now is the time to be a Sonic fan more than ever. The community has always been small but mighty, but now we're growing and growing and growing.
True.
And it's awesome. It is absolutely awesome. So for those who don't know, tell us a little tiny bit about yourself.
Well, I mean, you kind of did a great job, but yeah, I started out on doing regional theater and Broadway and off-Broadway. I went to NYU. I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts in acting.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, I did a lot of work at the classical studio. I love Shakespeare. Yeah, and I started my work as Blaze the cat in I think about 2002. And it was really funny. Actually, I had a fan yesterday. They came with every single game.
Oh,
wanting
nice.
it like a specific quote from each game and my autograph, and I said yes. Oh, you have all 7? And he goes, actually I have all 10. And I said, wait, I did 10? And he said yes. So sometimes we lose track of our own work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that was a fun thing to discover. But yes, I've been voice acting professionally for I guess 22 or 23 years now, and in the theater even longer. So
awesome.
yeah.
I know that's something that a lot of people tend to ask, like voice actors, like, do you remember like this specific line or this thing? It's like, you realize they do so much work that many times it's not everybody. There are some that do retain every single thing, but I totally understand for those who I don't fully remember that.
Yeah,
right?
and I explain to people also that if you're dubbing, you're going to remember less than if you're doing what's called a prelay.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's in the original language first, you're going to remember a little bit more because you get the script in advance and you can read it.
Yeah.
You might not remember that much more, but you get a little bit more in of the whole story before the director comes into the picture.
Right, because that way you can kind of plan a little bit further ahead
Yeah.
than trying to do it on the fly.
Yeah,
That's
but
cool.
doing it on the fly is the way to go.
Okay.
But reading the whole script just to understand the relationships and where things are going is like a nice advantage.
Awesome.
But like you said, well, you don't want to plan too much ahead because you don't want to get what's called stuck in a read.
Okay, well, what do you mean by?
Okay, sure. So if you decide you're rehearsing for a particular thing, you really shouldn't rehearse. You should have an idea of what you want to do with it, an idea of your voice. But you don't want to get stuck in a read because you could rehearse, let's just say, saying a particular line a certain way, and the director's like, no, that's not the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
And then some people who are not directable or as directable as a total professional, someone who's been doing it a really long time, might get stuck in a read. So they might be like, the line is like, I adore you, and they might be like, I adore you, and they're like, no, we want you to throw it away a little bit more. It's not that important. There's a bigger line coming later, so we just want you to throw it away. Some actors might get stuck in that, I adore you, and they're like, it's sense memory, it's in the muscles, it's in the voice, and they can't unremember what they've rehearsed. So it's really important in voiceover, more important than in theater and anything else, to not over-prepare.
Fair.
To not over-rehearse, because you have no idea what the director's going to ask of you, and you need to be able to give them exactly what they need when they're asking.
I love that you're saying that, because that's something I don't do voice acting or anything, but I do YouTube and creation. Even though it's not acting per se, there is still production and planning and everything with that. And I feel that one of my biggest flaws is that I overproduce. I tend to overdo, overpractice, and overproduce, when the reality is just kind of go for it sometimes.
Yeah,
You'll
you don't
just
know
get
what's
it.
going to happen in the moment.
Yeah.
So it's important to stay open to live direction and to stay open to not being caught in the moment before. It's very hard to stay present. Even now with you, I'm seeing all these other things that are happening, but we have to be on hyper focus so that we can not miss each other's beats and stuff like that. It's the same thing in the booth. It's there's always outside distractions, but it's really about what you're seeing on the screen and what you're being told, and is it really sinking in? And a lot of people, it doesn't. A lot of people, they're hearing it, but they have their own internal monologue going at the same time, so they have a hard time of really giving the director what they want. by letting go of their internal noise.
Right, because by nature they're going to want to go with that first.
Yes.
Versus what somebody's trying to guide them into.
100%.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Yep, that makes sense. That makes sense. Getting the role of Blaze the Cat, because you know you've done several 4Kids roles on top of that. So I did kind of want to touch a little bit about your history with 4Kids and the global phenomenon that is 4Kids entertainment. Knowing that you are part of that pivotal point of English localization of anime. How do you feel knowing that you've been a part of Pokémon? You were Luffy in One Piece, and now you're part of Sonic, which is bigger than it's ever been before. It's like, how do you feel that you're an integral piece of that pie?
Well, it's interesting. I think I think part of the beginning of the mainstream. So like after the DVD, right?
Yeah.
There were a couple of things that happened before us, but then I think our shows were the first ones that came out mainstream. And I think there was a little bit more of the Americanization at the beginning. And I do think that was necessary for it to be accepted, because a lot of people are not open-minded and they can't see like, oh, this is different from me and that's okay. A lot of people's first reaction is different is bad.
Right.
Even little kids are like, broccoli? No, I don't want it, right? So you have to sort of introduce things like slowly. And I think that's what actually 4Kids doesn't get enough credit for, is like really acclimating people slowly to a different culture. And maybe sometimes they pandered too much, you know, and they gave a little bit too much of the American flair on the Japanese. But I do feel like without that happening, it never would have caught wind here. We never would have had the massive influx of other properties that came in after that, if we had alienated them too much at the front by being like, you know, too pure, for lack of a better word. But also, you know, one of the main reasons why a lot of the changes were made was because of S&P.
Right, of course.
Standards and practices. For you
Yep.
guys who don't know.
Yep.
Yeah, depending on what time, what day.
All of it's a factor.
The rules were so different from day to day. But Saturday morning is the most sacred. It's the most protective of the child, and it still is to this day.
Absolutely, because a lot of people might think it's like, oh, it's just cultural differences. Like, oh, no. There's many other factors that are involved with it behind the scenes that you don't even know about.
Yes.
So true that. Going into getting the role of Blaze the Cat,
yes,
of our lovely fire princess. Like, when you first saw the character of Blaze the Cat, when you first saw how she looks, the powers that she could do, what was the first initial thoughts that went through your brain when you saw her?
I don't recall, to be honest. I just remember like being so excited to dive into this character and like knowing that this was a sacred character for everyone, or for lack of a better word, very important.
Yes.
It was just like a very important character that was brand new and that they had this, you know, intense idea about. So they wanted to make sure that I got it right. And talking about not rehearsing, right?
Mm-hmm.
I had to make sure that I was completely open to all of the people talking in the room. Because sometimes you have more than one director, sometimes you have more than one producer in the room. And if you're like listening to one person too much over another, or only hearing one thing, or you're letting your nerves take a hold of your ability to really take in what is being asked of you, that's when you will spiral. But if you can like really just go, constantly remind yourself, like, I was chosen, they want me here.
This is yours.
And it's already mine. And so now my job is to just please everyone in the room and make sure that I'm giving them what it is that they're asking for. And she was a very complex character.
She is. She is. Arguably, I think she's one of the most complex characters in all the Sonicverse and all the Sonic media. In my opinion, I think she is.
I mean, people have said that. She's got a backstory. She's got a lot going on for her.
That's something that I wish that I hope that in future Sonic shows, whether it be like on Netflix or whatever might happen, that we might get a little bit more in that backstory, because the comics, especially the relationship between her and Silver, and I have a question about that, and it's just, there's so much to it. Is there a particular character trait in Blaze the Cat that speaks you particularly? Like this, this character trait is like, this is perfect for me, for Erica.
Oh my gosh. Well, a lot of things I relate to with Blaze, but I think one of the main things is the loyalty.
Yes.
You know, and like when I got to be Sir Percival, I got to like kind of dip a little bit into my Shakespeare roots, kind of like put like a little bit of my Shakespearean Erica on top of Blaze. which was
Oh, I
so
didn't
much
even think
fun.
about that. It's like, I bet you went nuts for that too, like
I
considering
think
your
that
background.
was one of my favorites.
Awesome.
Yeah, like I really enjoyed that a lot. And but yeah, her story with Silver is something that really is very moving to me. You know, her sacrifice.
I have a bonus question on that. If they were to go back to the Sonic Storybook series, what classic tale would you like for them to do? Because, you know, they did Alibaba with the with Sonic and Secret Rings. They did King Arthur with the Black Knight. So, what other like kind of classic tales would you love to see?
I don't know. Have you thought about this?
I was thinking like Greek mythology and Hercules. That's what I was like. Something like that would be
Peter
really,
Pan
really
could
cool.
be fun.
Oh, Peter Pan would be awesome. That would be
Peter
awesome.
Fun, but yeah, well, I love Greek mythology. But yeah, there's so many. Oh, that's exciting. That's a fun question I've never been asked before. Something really fun. I wonder what the fans would say. What
I bet you they would. They would
Maybe
eat
they'll
that up.
put it in the comments section.
I would love to see that.
Yeah.
I was actually saving something like this for this occasion because I managed to get this shirt. And I thought you would enjoy to see this because of, again, in my opinion, one of the dynamic duos of all of Sonic, which would be Silver and Blaze, the soulmates as they've been known as. I like to call them the time splitters because of, you know, how Silver can manipulate time. That's what I call them.
I like that.
I had an idea because there's a whole conversation of what other side story or other side characters should get their own games. Because, you know, Shadow got his own game, Tails has multiple games, right?
Wow.
So I had an idea for Silver to have his own game where he uses time manipulation to solve puzzles, defeat enemies, that sort of thing. But of course, Blaze has to be there too, right? So my question would be, what would you like to see Blaze do in a situation like that?
In time travel?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. Well, yeah, I mean, well, they kind of did King Arthur, but it would be great to do like, I don't know, maybe a spin on As You Like It, like Shakespeare's As You Like It.
Yeah.
Which has a really fun subplot. Y'all gotta read it because it's very complex.
Homework.
But
there you go.
I think that all those relationships would kind of come into play with that, or 12th Night.
That would be cool.
That
That
would
would
be
be
a
really
really
cool.
good
Again,
one.
the possibilities are endless, right? They
Yeah,
are. They
yeah.
absolutely are. So, Erica, thank you so much for being here once again.
you.
Thank you for the time. Thank you for coming to Game On Expo. And you also check the link right up there in the iCard if you want to see the panel that I emceed with her and Jason Griffith. That'll also be up on the channel. Before we go, why don't you tell the internet where people can find you?
Mostly on Instagram. I'm also on Threads, but you can find me at Erica Schroeder VA on Instagram.
Awesome, awesome.
Yeah,
All right,
thank
and
you so much.
of course, you're welcome. I appreciate you for everything.
Yes.
And of course, you can find me at G to the Next Level. I'm pretty much everywhere. And of course, do the things to help the channel grow, subscribe, like, and all that good stuff. And on behalf of Erica Schroeder and Game On Expo, I'm G, and we will see you on the next level.